What if the boy your teachers called slow grew up to light the entire world? What if the child who asked too many questions became the man who changed history with 1,000 inventions? Thomas Alva Edison was born on February 11, 1847, in the small town of Milan, Ohio. He was the youngest of 7 children, and from the beginning he was different from the others. As a child, Edison was filled with endless curiosity. He was always asking why, how, and what if, questions that adults around him didn't always appreciate. His early life wasn't easy. When he was only 7, his family moved to Port Huron, Michigan, where his father tried various business ventures, and his mother took on the difficult task of raising and educating her children. At school, Edison didn't fit in. His mind worked differently, and his teachers didn't know how to handle his constant questioning and restless energy. After just a few months in a traditional classroom, his teacher labeled him addled, meaning mentally slow, and he was sent home. That moment could have ended his education, but instead, it changed everything. His mother, Nancy Edison, refused to believe her son was unintelligent. She decided to teach him at home, where he would learn at his own pace. She gave him books, encouragement, and the freedom to explore. Edison later credited his mother for his success. He said that her faith in him made him believe in himself when no one else did. By the age of 10, Edison had already developed a love for reading and science. He read books on physics, chemistry, and mechanics. He set up a small laboratory in his basement, using bottles, wires, and chemicals to conduct his own experiments. The smell was awful, but the boy was thrilled by every bubbling reaction and spark of energy. His experiments sometimes failed, and sometimes they were dangerous. But each one taught him something new. He wasn't just playing. He was learning how the world worked by testing it with his own hands. And though he didn't yet know it, he was preparing for a lifetime of invention. At the age of 12, Edison took a job selling newspapers and candy on the Grand Trunk Railroad. Every day, he traveled back and forth from Port Huron to Detroit. He wasn't just earning money. He was observing the world around him, listening to people, asking questions, and gathering ideas. He even convinced the train conductor to let him set up a small lab in an empty baggage car. There, between stops, he continued to experiment with chemicals and machinery. It was a dangerous setup, and one day, a fire broke out, destroying the lab and ending his science experiments on the train. But Edison didn't give up. He simply found another way to keep learning. Around this time, he developed a strong interest in telegraphy. The system used to send messages over long distances using electrical signals. The railroads depended on telegraphy, and Edison watched the operators with fascination. Eventually, he learned how to use the telegraph himself. He studied the system in depth, mastering the skills needed to operate it quickly and accurately. This new knowledge led to jobs as a telegraph operator in various cities. It was during this period that Edison truly began to understand the power of electricity and communication. He often worked the night shift, which left him with long hours of free time. Instead of resting, he used that time to read, take apart machines, and try out his own ideas. Every failed experiment became a lesson. Every success gave him more confidence. Edison had no formal engineering education, but he had something more important, a relentless drive to understand, create, and improve. By the time he was in his early 20s, Edison had already developed several devices and had begun applying for patents. His first invention was an electric vote recorder designed for use in legislative chambers. Although it worked perfectly, no one wanted to use it. Lawmakers weren't interested in speeding up the voting process. It was a tough lesson, but an important one. Edison realized that having a good invention wasn't enough. People also had to want it. This experience changed how he thought about invention. From then on, he would focus not only on what was technically possible, but also on what was useful and marketable. His journey was still just beginning, but the foundation was set. A curious boy who asked too many questions had become a young man ready to take on the world with wire, fire, and unbreakable determination. And although many still doubted him, Edison knew that he had found his path. A path that would lead him into the pages of history as one of the greatest inventors the world has ever known. Thomas Edison's early experiences with invention taught him a powerful truth. Success depended not only on creativity, but also on perseverance and practicality. After the disappointment of his first patent, the vote recorder, Edison began to sharpen both his technical skills and his sense of the marketplace. He moved to Boston, one of the country's centers for science and industry at the time. There, he found work as a telegraph operator, but more importantly, he connected with people who understood the value of innovation. In Boston, Edison filed more patents and continued working on devices that improved existing technologies. His mind was constantly full of ideas, and he was beginning to attract attention. But Edison knew that if he really wanted to succeed, he needed to be closer to the heart of the business world. In 1869, he moved to New York City, where he quickly found work repairing stock ticker machines, the devices used in Wall Street offices to report financial data. One day, when a stock ticker broke down, Edison fixed it so quickly and efficiently that he impressed the company's managers. Soon after, he was hired to improve the device. Edison's new design was a massive success. His improved stock ticker brought him his first real financial windfall, $40,000, a huge sum at the time. With this money, Edison could finally do what he had dreamed of for years. He set up his own laboratory and workshop, where he could invent full-time. He first established a lab in Newark, New Jersey, where he hired a small team of skilled machinists and assistants. The workshop was a hive of constant activity. Edison didn't see invention as the work of a solitary genius. He believed in collaboration and teamwork. His lab became an early model of what we now call research and development. The team worked long hours, often late into the night, building prototypes, testing materials, and documenting every step. Edison kept hundreds of notebooks filled with diagrams, ideas, and observations. In this lab, Edison and his team developed dozens of new products. These included improvements to the telegraph, such as the duplex and quadruplex systems, which allowed multiple messages to be sent over the same wire. These inventions were revolutionary. They made communication faster, cheaper, and more efficient, and earned Edison both money and respect. But Edison wanted more than success. He wanted to change the world. In 1876, he made a bold decision that would shape his legacy forever. He left Newark and built a brand new laboratory in Menlo Park, New Jersey. It was the first of its kind, a facility completely dedicated to invention. Edison's goal was simple but ambitious: to create a space where innovation would never stop. He wanted to solve big problems, and he wanted the tools and team to do it. At Menlo Park, Edison surrounded himself with the brightest minds and gave them everything they needed to experiment freely. The environment was intense, creative, and often chaotic. Edison's own energy was unmatched. He was known to sleep only a few hours at night, preferring instead to nap during the day so he could work around the clock. One of his favorite sayings was, "Genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration." It was more than a quote. It was how he lived. Menlo Park quickly became a symbol of American innovation. Journalists dubbed Edison the Wizard of Menlo Park after he revealed one of his most astonishing creations, the phonograph. The phonograph was the first machine that could record and play back sound. People were amazed. Some even thought it was magic. The device used a needle to etch sound vibrations into a rotating cylinder. When played back, the vibrations recreated the original sound. For the first time in history, a human voice could be captured and heard again later. It was an emotional and historic breakthrough. Edison had now created something that no one else had even imagined. His fame grew, and the world began to watch his lab for the next big thing. He wasn't finished, not even close. In Menlo Park, Edison was just getting started. Edison's success with the phonograph marked a turning point in his career, but the world was still waiting for his next great invention. And he already had his sights set on something that would change daily life more than almost anything else in history: electric light. In the late 1870s, gas lamps and candles were still the main sources of light after dark. They were dangerous, expensive, and not very effective. Scientists had long been working on creating electric light, but their early versions were unreliable and short-lived. Edison believed he could do better. He wanted to create an electric light bulb that was practical, affordable, and long-lasting. To do this, he and his team at Menlo Park began a long and difficult journey. They tested thousands of different materials to find the perfect filament, the part of the bulb that glows when electricity passes through it. They tried carbon, platinum, bamboo, and even materials like hair and thread. Each failure was documented carefully because Edison believed every mistake brought them closer to success. He once said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." The search took months, then years. The pressure was intense, as other inventors around the world were racing toward the same goal. But Edison's lab worked tirelessly. Eventually, they discovered that a carbonized bamboo filament could burn for over 1,200 hours, much longer than any previous version. This breakthrough was the beginning of a revolution. Edison didn't stop with the bulb. He knew that for electric light to be useful, it needed an entire system. He designed generators, wiring, switches, and safety mechanisms to deliver electricity into homes and businesses. His vision wasn't just about invention, it was about infrastructure. In 1882, Edison opened the first electric power station in New York City. It powered a section of Lower Manhattan and marked the birth of the modern electric utility. For the first time, entire neighborhoods could be lit by electricity. Life after dark was no longer limited to flickering gas flames. The electric age had arrived. Businesses could stay open longer. People could read, work, and play safely at night. Edison's invention didn't just brighten streets and buildings, it illuminated the path toward modern life. But as his fame grew, so did the competition. Other inventors and companies challenged Edison's methods and patents. One of the biggest rivalries was with Nikola Tesla, a brilliant inventor who had once worked for Edison but left due to disagreements. Tesla believed in a different system of delivering electricity, called alternating current, or AC. Edison supported direct current, or DC, which had limitations over long distances. The debate became known as the War of Currents. Edison launched a fierce campaign to promote DC and discredit AC, claiming it was dangerous. He even staged public demonstrations showing animals harmed by AC to make his point. Despite these efforts, Tesla's AC system, supported by industrialist George Westinghouse, proved to be more efficient for wide-scale distribution. In the end, AC became the standard, and Edison's DC faded into the background. This was a rare defeat for Edison, but it didn't stop him from moving forward. His lab continued to produce new inventions at a remarkable pace. By the mid-1880s, Menlo Park had become world famous. Visitors from around the globe came to see where magic was made. Edison had shown the world that invention could be more than random inspiration. It could be a process, a system, a full-time pursuit. He wasn't just creating devices. He was changing the way people lived, worked, and interacted with the world around them. And he was far from done. As the lights of New York began to glow at night, Edison was already dreaming of what he could invent next. After illuminating the world with electric light, Thomas Edison was no longer just an inventor. He was a symbol of progress. But he wasn't ready to slow down. With the same relentless energy, Edison turned his attention to sound and motion. He was fascinated by the possibility of combining technology and entertainment. His work on the phonograph had already changed how people experienced sound. Now, he wanted to go further, into the realm of moving pictures. In the early 1890s, Edison and his team developed the kinetoscope, an early motion picture viewing device. Unlike modern projectors, the kinetoscope allowed one person at a time to watch short films through a peephole. These films were only a few seconds long but captivated audiences. They featured dancers, athletes, and brief performances, scenes that had never been recorded before. Edison also built the Black Maria, the first film production studio in the United States. It was a small, dark building covered in black tar paper, designed to rotate with the sun for better lighting. Inside the Black Maria, Edison's team produced hundreds of short films, many of which would become historical treasures. It was a new industry, and Edison was helping shape it from the ground up. At the same time, he was expanding his business ventures. He had already founded several companies, and by the 1890s, he established the Edison General Electric Company. This company later became part of what we now know as General Electric, one of the largest and most influential corporations in the world. Through these ventures, Edison began to understand the challenges of balancing invention with business. Managing patents, factories, employees, and finances took time and energy. Some critics argued that Edison had become more businessman than scientist. Others believed he was still a pioneer, just adapting to the scale of his success. No matter the perspective, it was clear that Edison's influence stretched far beyond the lab. His inventions were shaping entire industries, and his name had become a brand. Despite his wealth and fame, Edison remained a worker at heart. He still wore simple clothes, took few vacations, and preferred spending time in his workshop to attending social events. He continued to experiment with new ideas, including improvements to batteries, cement, and even a talking doll that used a mini phonograph inside. Some of these inventions failed, while others quietly succeeded. What never changed was Edison's desire to solve problems. He once said that he was most interested in things that could make life easier or better for ordinary people. Edison believed that invention was not just about imagination, it was about usefulness. He often asked himself, will this help someone? In the 1910s, he began working on storage batteries that could power electric vehicles. Although gas-powered cars soon dominated the market, Edison's work laid the foundation for future developments in electric transportation. He also formed friendships and collaborations with other famous inventors and industrialists of the time, including Henry Ford and Harvey Firestone. Together, they traveled and discussed ideas, forming what the media called the Vagabonds. These gatherings were part vacation, part think tank, and a testament to Edison's curiosity. Even as he aged, Edison's mind stayed sharp. He remained deeply involved in research and regularly visited his laboratories. His hearing, which had always been poor, worsened over the years, but he learned to adapt. He read lips, used early hearing aids, and relied on written notes. Through every phase of his life, Edison maintained the same approach: observe the world, find problems, and build something to solve them. As the world entered the 20th century, Edison stood as a bridge between the old and the new. He was born before the telephone, the automobile, and the electric light, but he helped invent all three, and he wasn't finished yet. As Thomas Edison entered the later years of his life, the world around him continued to evolve at a breathtaking pace. New inventions appeared almost daily, many of them built upon the foundations Edison himself had laid. But even with his towering achievements, Edison never saw himself as someone who had arrived. He remained curious, restless, and determined to keep working. In the early 20th century, one of his major focuses became improving battery technology. He believed the future of transportation could lie in electric vehicles and wanted to develop a battery that was powerful, reliable, and affordable. The project took over a decade of research and experimentation. Edison poured time and money into perfecting a nickel-iron battery. The battery had some advantages: long life and resistance to overcharging, but it was heavy and less efficient than others being developed. While it wasn't a commercial breakthrough, it contributed valuable knowledge to the field of energy storage. Edison's friendship with Henry Ford grew during these years. Ford had worked as an engineer at one of Edison's companies before founding the Ford Motor Company. They became close collaborators and vacationed together with Harvey Firestone and naturalist John Burroughs. The group, known as the Vagabonds, took road trips to promote American industry and innovation. Edison supported Ford's efforts to build affordable cars for the masses, and Ford admired Edison's tireless spirit and inventive genius. Their friendship was a blend of mutual respect and shared values. At the same time, Edison continued to explore a wide range of ideas. He worked on phonograph improvements, new building materials like Edison cement, and even an idea for prefabricated concrete houses. Not every venture succeeded, but failure never stopped him. He believed that progress came through persistence, and he was living proof. In 1915, Edison was appointed head of the U.S. Navy Consulting Board during World War I. He helped review inventions that could support the war effort and urged the development of American technology. Though he had aged and his hearing had declined further, Edison still gave his full attention to the work. He saw service to his country as another way to use invention for good. The final years of Edison's life were quieter but still productive. He had become a household name, a legend, but he still preferred his workshop to public attention. Edison's health began to decline in the late 1920s. He suffered from a number of illnesses, but he remained mentally active and full of ideas until the very end. He died on October 18, 1931, at the age of 84. His passing was marked by tributes from around the world. In a remarkable gesture of respect, Americans were asked to turn off their lights for 1 minute on the night of his funeral. Cities across the country went dark in a shared moment of silence. The boy who once played with chemicals in a basement had become one of history's greatest inventors. Over his lifetime, he earned 1093 patents and changed the world in ways few others ever have. His impact was felt in homes, cities, industries, and imaginations. He showed that curiosity, combined with relentless effort, could shape the future. Edison's life was not perfect. He had rivals, made mistakes, and sometimes struggled to see beyond his own ideas. But what defined him most was his refusal to quit. Even after wealth and fame, he worked. Even after failures, he tried again. Edison believed that progress was a duty, not a luxury. And because he lived that belief every day, the world was brighter, safer, and more connected when he left it than when he entered it. The legacy of Thomas Edison lives on not only in the devices we use, but in the very way we think about innovation. He helped turn invention into a structured process, something that could be pursued daily with focus and determination. In a world that often celebrates overnight success, Edison's story reminds us that true achievement comes from persistence and hard work. His career was a journey of decades, filled with trial, error, and continuous improvement. He never let failure stop him. Instead, he welcomed it as a teacher. Edison's inventions touched nearly every part of modern life: light, sound, motion pictures, communication, and energy. But perhaps his greatest gift was proving that one person's vision, when matched with grit and discipline, could truly change the world. He showed future generations that innovation is not reserved for the elite. It belongs to anyone willing to observe, question, and build. The laboratories he created became models for modern research centers. His idea that teams of scientists and engineers could collaborate under one roof set a precedent for how breakthroughs happen today. Even the corporate world was reshaped by Edison's efforts. His ventures led to new ways of financing, protecting, and marketing technological ideas. The influence of his work can be seen in the smartphones we carry, the electricity that powers our homes, and the way we listen to music or watch films. Each of these is a branch on a tree whose roots trace back to Menlo Park. Educational programs around the world still study Edison's process, his attention to detail, his experimental methods, and his unshakable belief in progress. He is featured in museums, books, and classrooms, continuing to inspire young minds. In popular culture, Edison's name is synonymous with invention. He is often referenced alongside other great thinkers and creators throughout history. But he was also a man, flawed, complex, driven. He could be stubborn, competitive, and at times difficult to work with. Yet his imperfections make his achievements even more remarkable. Edison's life shows us that greatness does not require perfection. It requires purpose. He once said, "The three great essentials to achieve anything worthwhile are hard work, stick-to-itiveness, and common sense." These values are still relevant today. As we face the challenges of the modern world, climate change, digital transformation, energy demands, we are reminded that bold solutions come from people who dare to try. People like Edison. Whether it's a student building a science fair project, an engineer working late into the night, or a dreamer scribbling ideas in a notebook, Edison's influence is there. His story belongs to all of us because it reminds us of what's possible, not just in technology, but in life. When we meet obstacles, we can remember his words. Our greatest weakness lies in giving up. The most certain way to succeed is always to try just one more time. The light bulb is more than a symbol of invention. It's a symbol of resilience, discovery, and the will to keep going. Thanks to Thomas Edison, the world shines a little brighter, and our path forward is forever illuminated by the power of human potential. Thomas Edison's journey is more than a story of invention. It's a powerful reminder of what's possible when we believe in our ideas and refuse to give up. His life teaches us that failure is not the end, but a step forward in the learning process. Through every spark, every sketch, and every sleepless night, Edison built a future that continues to shape our present. His path from a curious child to a world-changing innovator shows that greatness can come from anywhere. All it takes is imagination, effort, and the courage to keep going. Thank you for watching this story. If it inspired you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories of incredible lives and ideas that changed the world. And let us know in the comments, what was your favorite invention or lesson from Thomas Edison's life? Until next time, keep learning, stay curious, and remember, the next great idea might be yours.